The very first mantra talked about the Tadetat Satyam. This indeed is true. In the last section, it started out with the same way, but the efficacy of karma was talked about. And now over here, the Brahma Vidya. This is the absolute truth. That karma over there is truth, but that karma is the relative truth. Over here, this truth overrides the truth of the karma kand. That karma is important, but the truth of the karma is that it has to yield the purity of the inner equipment. And the truth of this section, Brahma Vidya, is that this equipment has to be delivered to the higher. It is only through this equipment that Jiva regains its identity as the higher. The Jiva Brahma Aikyam is established, and that is the absolute truth. And thus, this section started with that. Second mantra was the Swarupa Lakshana, that, O Jiva, you are not this, you are the higher. Divyo hyamurta purushaha, sabahya bhyantaro hyajaha, aprano hyamana shubraha, yaksharat parataf paraha. You are that aksharat parataf paraha. You are beyond the beyond. What your concept of beyond is, it is beyond all concept. And that aksharat parataf para, who is that divya, it is immaculately divine. What type of divine? Over here, self-resplendent. It is the Atma Jyoti, Swayam Jyoti, and this Jyoti requires no other Jyoti to be lit. It is ever lit, Divya. Hyamurta, there is no form. Purushaha, and it is the absolute Purusha. Puram Sheteti Purushaha, Purayati Purushaha, that which fills the entire universe is this Purusha. And even in the village of the body, Indriya Gram, it also dwells in it. Sabahya bhyantaro hyajaha. He is inside, he is outside. Inside and outside are concepts. And he is inside and outside, meaning the upadhi created boundary of the outside world and the upadhi created boundary of the inside world. That the boundary created by the physical body, the boundary created by the emotional body, the boundary created by the intellectual body, all of these, he is one who is beyond it. He is outside, he is inside, meaning the outside world of pluralistic existence of Maya. He alone is the author of that. The inside created world of the Jiva Maya and Ishwar Maya. Both of that, he alone is Hyajaha. He is the unborn. Unborn over here is a technical term in Vedanta, that he is changeless. Because something, if it is born, it comes with 6 types of vikaras. Asti, jayate, vardate, vibrinamate, apakshiyate, vinashyati. It is devoid of the 6 vikaras, the 6 modification of potential existence, birth, growth, maturation, then decay, disease and death. It has none of those. Aprano hyamana shubraha. And apranaha, it is beyond the kriya shakti. Yamanaha, it is beyond the Ichha Shakti. of the mana and the Jnana Shakti of the intellect. It is beyond any of these modifications. Shubhraha, it is ever immaculately pure. Aksharat paratah paraha. Continuing. Etasmat jayate pranaha.
Etasmat jayate pranaha.
Manas sarvendriyani cha.
Manas sarvendriyani cha.
Kham vayu jyotirapaha.
Kham vayu jyotirapaha.
Prithvi vishvasya dharini.
Prithvi vishvasya dharini.
So over here, this is the Brahman as the very cause of everything. Last mantra was the absolute state of Brahman. It was the Swarupa Lakshana. The absolute nature of Brahman was talked about. The Paramarthika Darshan, the absolute, was pointed out. Now, Sarvakaranatva, the very cause of the entire plurality, if it exists, then who is the cause of plurality? He alone is. So that is talked about over here. Katham te nasanti pranadayaha iti uchyate. So all this in the last mantra was talked about, that kham, vayu, aprano, hyamanaha, shubhraha, all of those. So why is it that Brahman does not have any of these things? Swarupa Lakshan, the Paramarthika Darshan, was the very first line of the last mantra. But the second line was the indication of Brahman as not this. So how come pranas are not in Brahman? If it is the Swarupa Lakshan was pointed out, the absolute nature was pointed out, then how come they are not there? So over here it is mentioned, Etasmad eva purushat nama rupa bijo upadi lakshitah jayate utpatyate avidya vishya vikara bhuta nama dheya andrutatmaka pranaha vacharambanam vikaro nama dheyam vrittika eva satyam. All that was mentioned in. So over here in this Bhashya, Shankaracharya ji is quoting that it was mentioned in Chandogya Upanishad that Vacharambanam Vikaram, all the modifications, Vikara, that we see, that we experience, that we feel, that we understand, that we know, from the standpoint of the Upadhi, from the standpoint of the limited adjunct of the body, the mind, the intellect, the ones which limit our knowledge of the pluralistic world, all this is Vacharambhanam. It is nothing but modification of words. Vacharambhanam Namadeyam. It is the word of just names. And the speech is nothing but names. And the speech is describing something which is caught in a moment in time, known as time and space. Matter is nothing. That which is captured by time and space is called matter. And only something which is captured by time and space I can describe, because it is limited. It is limited by two forces, minimum two forces. And the two forces are space, there is a spatial limitation, and then there is a temporal limitation. And the matter is confined in a location. If it is in Austin, then it is not in San Antonio. So it is a spatial limitation. It is time bound. If it is in the 21st century, then it is not in the 16th century. Or if something is in the 16th century, in the 21st century, maybe 1,000 centuries down the road, half-life will take over and it will eventually perish. But time will act upon it. So all this is time bound. All this is nothing but spatially limited, temporally limited, and all of these limitations are nothing but modification of words. Some story is told. So that is what all these things are. Which things? Aprana, amanaha, all of them. Aprana, the objective limitations are removed. Amanaha, relative temporal limitation is removed, because mind is little bit longer lived than the objects. Why? Because the mind transmigrates from body to body to body to body. The objects disappear, but it remains. For how long? Prarabdha. And causal body itself decides. So, etasmat eva. Etasmat purushat eva. From this akshara purusha, नाम रूप बीज उपाधि लक्षित जायते. From this नाम रूप, the name and the form, bija, the very seed of the name and the form, upadhi lakshita, it is indicated by karanavastha, some cause. If body is there, if mind is there, if intellect is there, rest assured there was some cause for that body to be there in that time, in that space. If that mind and intellect are there, something has created that uniqueness of that mind. Everybody does not have the same type of emotions and feelings. So there was some cause behind it. Bija. Bija lakshita, but I cannot see the seed. The seed is indicated. It is indicated by what? The upadhi avastha. Which upadhi over here? Karana avastha. So what is the cause of the karana sharira? He alone. From him rises everything. So, jayate utpatyate, it is born out of what was the thing which separated the seed from it. What made the seed fall out? Avidya. That ignorance alone made it drop the seed of avidya. And that avidya vishaya vikara bhuta. And then the further modification of the avidya is all of this vishayatmika prakruti, namarupatmika prakruti, vikaratmika prakruti. All of these, they separated from that. Avidya, vishaya, vikara, bhuta, namadeya, anrutatmaka pranaha. And that is why over here it is said in a negative form in the previous mantra, even though the paramarthika swarupa lakshana was pointed out, along with that the negative was also indicated, aprana, because if something exists, then it has to have a cause. And if it has a cause, what is the cause? So if they separated Prakruti completely different, then there will be two divergent things. So over here here to make that connection that this is not separate from that, as na iti was also mentioned over there. Neti neti vakyaihi. So that was also talked about over there. Iti anrutam nahi tena avidya vishayena anrutena pranena sapranatvam parasya syat aputrasya swapna drushteneva putrena saputravat. So it is true that if somebody does not have a child, they remain that way, they don't have a child. If they go into swapna avastha, and in the swapna avastha, in the dream state, they dream that they father a child. Just because they dream in the dream state that they have fathered a child, when they wake up, they don't find themselves being a father. In the waking state, when they come back, they will still be aputravat. They will still be one without a child. So, even though that same Brahman creates and becomes the author of the plurality, that Brahman ever remains as the one who is devoid of all plurality. So over here, the plurality is talked about as Swapnavat. That the whole creation is nothing but a projection in the total mind. And that total mind which has projected out the creation, when it collapses, it remains devoid of creation, ever in its immaculate nature. And in that way, it is apranaha, amanaha. Even though the mananatmika shakti is there, that shakti is a projection. But in Brahman, there is no such thing as the mentation shakti, the power of mentation, the power of sankalpa, vikalpa, nothing is there. So in that way, it is anruta, unreal. Anruta, it is not real from the absolute standpoint. Evam manas sarvani cha indriyani vishayascha etasmad eva jayante tasmad siddhamasya nirupacharita apranadimatvam ityarthaha. So in the same way, the entire indriyani cha mana, the mind and the senses. Senses are over here, the grossified senses at the level of the body, and the senses at the level of the equipment, the subtle senses which make the gross sense function, all of them. Vishayascha, the gross is only there because the gross objects are there. The gross objects can only be known by sthula indriyani. All of them, jayate, nirupacharitam. It has vishayascha etasmat eva jayate, sorry. So all of this, it is born from the same Brahman. And etasmat eva jayante tasmat siddhamasya. It is over here declared by the Shruti itself that Brahman alone is the cause of all of them. Nirupacharitam apranadi anadimatvam ityarthaha. But its absolute nature, it cannot be touched by any of this. Nirupacharita, its charitra remains upamarahita. We cannot indicate by anything. It remains ever immaculate. So all these things are taken to indicate it, but when the indicator falls and what remains, nirupama charita. You cannot, even though all this is used, it's like a person who does the high jump. He takes the pole vault and he runs and he launches the pole, and then utilizing the pole he thrusts above the ground and he throws the pole away and he comes out on the other side. He has to end up on the other side, but he has to throw the pole away. He and the pole both cannot end up on the other side. The pole is only to utilize to climb to that highest acme of height. Once he has reached it, he will toss it and come out on the other side. In the same way, mana, indriya, all these are nothing, but this upadhi created difference is utilizing it, climb up, because it alone is the cause, so it alone is the path. So to climb up, and once we climb up, the mind and the intellect cannot even define it. So that has to be casted, and the one falls out on the other side, and that is the nirupama charita. It is nirupa charitam apranadi. So in the negative sense it is said aprana, amanaha, all of those things, because only the mind and the senses give us a picture of what is on the other side, attempts to give a picture, but yet it cannot give a full picture. And in this way, yathacha prag utpattehe paramarthataha asantasya tha pradinascha iti drashtavyaha yatha karanani manaschendriyani tatha sharira vishaya karanani bhutani khamakasham vayuhu antar bahya avahadi bheda jyoti agni apodakam prithvi dharitra vishayascha sarvasya dharani etani eva shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandha uttarottara gunati purva guna sahita anyat asmad eva jayante. So over here all he is saying is, in the same way he becomes the cause of prana, mana, indriya, then kham, the space, vayu, the air element, jyoti, the fire element, apaha, the water element, prithvi, the earth element, and then vishwasya dharini, prithvi, which upholds everything. And this prithvi represents the sthula-most element. But each one of these elements, starting from the subtlemost space, come all the way up to the grossest, most prithvi. Each one of them has a property, and each one of them contributes their property. Because if it is born, if Brahman becomes a cause to create something, and if it creates in time and space, then the space and the time adds some limitation. And what is the limitation? The quality itself is the limiting agent, because that quality is unique to that element. And because of that, it is said that each one of these Pancha Mahabhutas, they are born with, so to speak, their own defects. And their own defects are their qualities. Their qualities become the limiting force of that element. And the limitation of the space element is sound. All it can do is objectify sound. And from this Akasha Tattva, Vayu is born. And the limiting force of the Vayu Tattva is Sparsha. The touch is born out of it. And that is all it can do. The Vayu Tattva can never ever wet something because it has not come out yet. But the Vayu Tattva will be able to reveal touch, but it can also reveal sound, because sound is subtler and it is born out of subtler nature. So when the wind moves, it can create sound too. There will be a sound element to the wind. So when the wind is blowing, you can hear the sound. So the wind will have two qualities, sound and sparsha. Then comes the Agni Tattva. The limitation of the Agni Tattva is heat and light. But the heat and light will have touch element to it. If I touch it, I know I have touched fire. Without a shadow of a doubt, I will be informed that you have touched what you are not supposed to touch. And in there will also be the sound element. When the fire rises up, it makes a sound. So all three are there. Shabda, Sparsha, and color and form. I see this heat and light I'm capable of seeing. Now it has become grossified. So the sight comes out of it. It's like that. Apaha, water element. And the water element is sapidity, the dravidita of water. And in there, all of the elements are there, including fire. And that is why lightning has to strike for water to be released. So the fire element is inbuilt in it. Even though water is used to put out fire, water actually holds fire. And because it holds it, it is born out of it. All of those things come Vayu, Jyoti, Apaha, Pruthivi, Vishwasya Dharani. And in this way, each one of them, what happens over here is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Uttarottara Gunani, Purva Guna Sahita, Sahita Anyet Asmad Eva Jayate. And each one of them will have the nature of the previous one. That is how all of them are born. So in this way, Sankshepataha Paravidya Vishayam Aksharam निर्विशेषं पुरुषं सत्यं दिव्यो ह्यमूर्त इत्यादिना तदेव सविषयं विस्तरेण वक्तव्यम् इति प्रववृते. This subject matter of the absolute truth, Paravidya Vishaya, Aksharam, that Akshar Brahman, absolute truth. What is it? Nirvishesham, which cannot be sectioned. But at the same time, that Nirvishesham Purusha, which is truth, Satyam Tadetat Satyam, Divyo Hyamurta, that which is self-resplendent, formless, Ityadi Mantrana. By these mantras, this Akshar Brahman was indicated. Punaha etat savishesham, that which was nirvishesha, Akshar Brahman, which is without any section, without any qualities, without any description. Now that same Brahman with qualities is talked about. Savishesham vistarena vaktavyamiti. With great detail it is going to be talked about, and just like a small sutra is there, but the sutra is elaborated in the commentary. In the same way, the Nirvishesha Brahman is Om. But that Om, what is that Om? Vistarena Vaktavyam. In great detail now the Shruti will try to indicate what is that Om from our language. And the mantras which lie ahead reveal a completely different nature of that Brahman. That Paramarthika Swarup now is going to be talked about as, in the relative world of plurality, the Karanatva of Brahman, the cause of the Brahman which creates multiplicity. Now multiplicity is going to be described, but through the multiplicity, remember what is indicated is the higher. So why is this indicated now? The highest was Swarupa Lakshan was talked about. The one who has purified their mind and intellect, and the mind and intellect have become very subtle, immediately Divyo Hyamurta Purusha, that mind can rise to that level and dissolve. There may be other students in the class who are not grasping that. And that mind and intellect needs to be made a little bit more subtle. So now that same Shruti comes and describes Brahman from a different standpoint for the sake of the mind and the intellect to make sure that this mind and intellect pick up on these ideas so that it can meditate upon it and become subtler and go higher. So for the sake of proper assimilation of the equipment, this upasana is pointed out of the plurality. Through plurality, do the chintanam of Brahman as the cause and then rise to that Brahman. For that purpose over here, yaha api prathamaja प्रथमजात प्राणादि अरण्य गर्भ जायते अंडस्यांतर विराट स Tasmad eva purusha jayate etad. So from that same Paramatma, how this entire Hiranyagarbha is formed, this Virat Purusha comes out. From that Virat, how the entire Srushti is come out, and how that itself becomes Lakshyate, a Lakshana to indicate the higher. And in this way, the Sarva Bhutantaratma is talked about over here, that Brahman itself is the very inner being of everything, inner being of all, and that is now going to be indicated. This we will see on Thursday. We will end over here today. Sarve bhavantu sukhilah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.